skill and talent can be developed through hard work, good strategies, persistence, dedication, and input from others. Where focus goes, energy flows. So focus your energy on continuous learning and stop wasting time thinking about looking smart. Build resistance, build vulnerability, build courageousness, and face adversity with a smile. Become comfortable with uncomfortable. You know, the only person that you need to prove anything to is you. Imperfect action trumps perfect inaction. Stop wasting time and get on with it. Failure is part of learning, so start learning by taking action.
Kristian Livolsi, it's the hot seat. It's Wednesday. It's not 5 p.m. We're coming to our audience a little bit.
It's not 5 p.m.
It is not, no. We thought we'd just test out the waters, see what it's like at a different time slot, see how many viewers we get and how many people we can get engaging with the hot seat.
Sweet. I love it.
All right, let's not muck around. We hope that people are tuning in while they're having some lunch or taking a little bit of a focus break from their work today. And I wanted to speak to you today and ask you some questions around business strategy and execution. So my first question that I wanted to ask you, Kristian, is how do you align your team members to the overall business strategy to make sure that everyone's working towards the same goal? So if you're a business owner and you've created a plan or you've got some goals, how would you get your team on board with what that is to help you fulfill those goals?
It's the $1 million question, right? It's the question that everybody asks. And yeah, I guess, look, aligning individual team members with the overall business strategy is actually critical in achieving the firm's objectives. Mm-hmm. And there's a few strategies. So obviously establish clear objectives, right? Which means everyone needs to have very clear goals, right? They need to be clearly outlined, for themselves and for the organization. And then you need to have some KPIs, you need to define those KPIs in order to help measure the progress against those goals. Another big one is open communication. Okay, so leadership need to buy in, but so does everybody else. Okay, if you don't have the buy-in, you're never going to get alignment. And a way of getting that buy-in is transparency, right? You got to keep the communication up. You got to make sure it's transparent, and you got to keep everyone going along that journey together. And the way you do that is through regular updates. Okay, so really important. Another thing is that individual alignment. And the easiest way to do that is through someone's job description or a job scorecard. And then one-on-ones. Okay, so have regular one-on-ones. Check in with your team to see how they're going with their goals, their priorities, and how they align to the team. And then also training and development. If you're not training people, you're not growing. If you are not a training organization, you're likely going to be defeated. Okay. Another strategy around how to keep the alignment going is fostering that collaboration. So we talk about cross-functional teams, and this is where we encourage people from different departments to work together on the strategic objectives. We bring everyone together every 90 days and realign everyone. And we do that too through team meetings. We have a very strict process. We also teach that to our clients. And when you consider how many companies there are in our portfolio and how many clients, the only way to do that is to have some systems and processes in place. Some other things you could do is, performance reviews and keeping the feedback loops going. So if you get feedback, make sure you're looping it back through so people understand that you are listening to them. And it's not just, it's not just silky sweet talk, right? The other thing is you got to learn to celebrate success, but also celebrate failure by learning from it. So recognition and reward programs can keep people aligned, and also what I call postmortems, right? So really going back and cleaning it up. And I guess finally, it's that personal development. If you've got a strategy and you want to get people aligned, make sure they can see the career path that is built out for them, and therefore have their own personal goals married into it. Because for an organization to thrive, you don't have to have, your employees don't need to have necessarily the same values as the company, but they have to have value alignment to be the right fit. So they're kind of the steps that I would put in place, Simone.
Wow, there was so much there in that probably 3 minute answer, not 2 minute. But I think that's something I've really noticed from myself, who's sat in a lot of middle management roles before. Not having that, the one-on-ones is something that I really enjoy having, that we do in our team at Business Growth Mindset, and not having to kind of filter up and down the information all the time, what the goals are. So when you've got a manager above you that's telling you what they want, and then you're constantly like passing the messages up and down, I feel like that's where things go wrong quite often. So I love those points that you shared about just having that open relationship and conversations to get everyone on board and understanding the journey.
Absolutely.
All
Now,
right.
Simone, we've got a few viewers, so maybe this time slot is better.
Yeah.
If you are watching us, give us a little shout, or I know some people have been giving a few love hearts that we can see, but let us know that you're watching it live, #live. And for those of you that are watching it later, just #replay. We are mucking around a little bit to just see where we're at. And as I say that, we lost 2 viewers. It's amazing, these platforms. They really are. But no, we want to thank you all for listening. Let's go. Let's hit the second question so we can keep
All right.
the viewers
My
engaged.
my second question is, how do you address the potential challenges or obstacles that arise during the execution of the business strategy? So a lot of the times when we have goals and things to do, they're above what our day-to-day tasks and duties and roles are. So how do you address when issues come up from the day-to-day, taking the focus away from the higher level priorities?
Challenges and obstacles are an inevitable part of executing any business's strategy, all right? So let's be really clear. And you should have a lot of, you should have plans around this. We certainly do in our sprint sessions when we ask people to set their priorities. We also get them to look at how many things could go wrong, how many challenges they could foresee, how many issues they may face, and that prepares them. But there's a few things that you can do to navigate those challenges, right? And that's about having a proactive and systematic approach. And some of those tools that I would highly recommend, and if you've got pen and paper, write these down, is to monitor your KPIs and review those feedback loops. Really important. I mentioned them earlier. Do a root cause analysis. Diagnose the problem, and then also consult all stakeholders, okay, all the time. The other one is look at the available resources you have, okay, so time, money, and personnel, whenever you need to address a challenge, right, or you need to pivot. And then also review any additional needs. The other thing that we do is if there's been some significant non-conformities, right, or challenges, then we look at developing action plans. So we look at strategic options that could tackle the problem, or even weigh on the pros and cons of each. We look at time framing, okay, and then we also look at assigning responsibility or reassigning, because it really does come down to execution. Does come down to really accountability most of the time, and a lot of people that fall over on the accountability side tend to not be as responsible, or not even have the authority most of the time. But the person that's accountable is always the person that can count, is my theory. So then you've got other things that you can implement and monitor. So for example, execute the plan. So once an action plan is finalized, you got to move towards that implementation, and therefore staying on top of it through those feedback loops and KPIs. The regular updating, and also being able to be fluid enough to adjust the strategy, is also really, really important. Now, communication, I said that earlier, internal and external is paramount if you want to execute correctly. We do that in meeting rhythms. We have a daily meeting. We have a weekly, we have a monthly, and then we also have a quarterly, biannually, and then a full yearly strategic day. And I guess that this comes down to that, also that review and learn. So you do the postmortems that I mentioned earlier, you update your processes, but the real big one, and I'm going to wrap it up to answer this question, is you've got to have resilience, and you've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be prepared for those future challenges, and you've got to have the flexibility when those challenges occur. Now, not everyone, Simone, is suited to that environment. So make sure you hire a really good advisor or a coach if you're going through those times. Don't they're not a good coach and a good advisor will not put you down. I might, but what you want to be doing is, if you've done something really stupid, I will tell you. But I'll also help you navigate those challenges and teach you how to do it. So then you can actually continue doing that further. So consistently applying any of those steps that I just mentioned will help develop a more robust approach to addressing any challenges or anything that arises throughout your execution phase.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And we like to, I know I like to think that everyone can work autonomously and they can all just go off and do their thing. And you get to the end of that period and go, okay, cool, show me what you've done. And it's not there. So I think that's great points just to bring the awareness back to yourself. If you're the person leading the team or your organization, for those steps in place to make sure that people are supported to do what they need to do and manage them accordingly if they need some extra support to get through that. All right, my third question for you and the last one that I have for you today is, how do you ensure that your strategy remains flexible and adaptable in changing market conditions? So we know that that's the only constant thing that happens, right, is change. That's the one thing that doesn't change. But how do you get your strategy to work for you when we feel like the world is changing so much so quickly?
Look, adapting to changing market conditions, as you said, it's crucial, but also it is inevitable, right? Things change. And you can be as organized as you want, but a good strategy will factor all of that in place. So you've got the maneuverability in your strategy. All right. So that's really important. But how do you ensure that strategy remains flexible? Well, firstly, let's go back to some of the things I've already discussed. So regular reviews, monitoring the industry trends, and also customer feedback. Listen to your customers, but also listen to your team members, right? Listen, document. We document every single week to make sure that we've got customer data and employee data at any given time. You got to build in, I said earlier, you got to build in the flexibility in your original strategy. So have a modular strategy design, right? Like, the strategy design that I use for our clients has, 7 columns and all of them move. And, people always say to me, how did you fit 100 pages onto one A3 piece of paper? And you know what it is? No one's going to read a 100-page strategy, but they will read one A3 paper. And almost all of our clients don't have an A3 printout of it. They have an A1 printout of it. They go to a printer and get a big one done. They normally have it in their situation room, the room where they have most of their meetings, and then people can review it all the time. It's got to be there right in front of them. The other thing is scenario planning. It's the what-if analysis, right? The contingency plans. Jim Collins calls it productive paranoia, right? And he kind of stole that whole notion of that when he was doing his research from Bill Gates. Bill Gates is productively paranoid. So, make sure you've got that built in. And for those of you that have stayed online and are listening, and all the lovely love hearts, thank you. It's about having decentralized decision-making. Empower your teams. Create those open communication pathways that foster a great culture, and then empower them. Let them go, right? Make sure that you build something of care. The other thing is, you've got to look at that ongoing learning and development. So again, training your employees, knowledge sharing, it's so critical. And we do all of this by having daily, weekly, monthly huddles. And, our clients, we teach them to do exactly the same thing, Simone. And then, the last few points that I would make is, be customer centric. We've forgotten this. We're so self-centric. So the market research, the feedback loops again, and then pilot testing, right? If you make sure you're always pilot testing something new. I mean, I drive you guys nuts because I'm always doing something new. But we don't deviate from our actual strategy. It is more about, let's see how everyone's going, and they haven't sat down. And this is about being agile. So, obviously, these are the things, the steps. There's a lot in today, actually. And it's probably because I'm trying to move through it really quickly because we've got a mastermind call in 10 minutes. But, it's really important. Strategy is actually, for me, strategy is really easy. It's what I do. It's what I'm trained to do. It's what I've spent years mastering. The execution part is challenging because you need to rely on so many moving parts, but there are so many great frameworks for getting that execution right. What you got to do is always make sure that first who, then what. Make sure you got the right people in the bus, in the right seat, who are accountable. Because when you lack accountability, all the things that I've mentioned won't help you. Right? And unfortunately, we live in a society now where people are less accountable than ever. And why? It's this right of entitlement. Well, no, you're not entitled. If you work for someone, right, you have an obligation, right, to do your job, right? Like, and I don't give a shit if there are employees listening and they don't like that, but that's the truth. Even when I worked for other people, I work for people every day, don't I, Simone?
Yeah.
My clients, I work for them, right? Like people say to me, you don't have a job, you're an owner. I have clients. My clients, I have to listen to. If I get instructions, I work on those instructions. If I don't agree with the instructions, I will let them know. But generally speaking, they listen to me because that's what they're paying me for. But I have to listen to them first. I have to understand their pain points, their frustrations. And, we've turned companies around that have had good culture and made it great. And there's nothing more satisfying than working in an organization that was already good. And now the team walk around with just, with pride about where they work because it was just going to great. And all of a sudden they're so empowered. There isn't that whole hierarchical leadership structure that stifles innovation and entrepreneurship, that holds people back from making mistakes. I mean, shit, if you want to work in those organizations, there are plenty of them. If you don't want your organization to be like that anymore, then start listening more to the hot seat, right? And then when you're ready, you pick up the phone. Yeah, we still have phones. We still have a phone number, right? And you can call us, email us, get in touch with us 1,000 different ways and speak to one of our team. But if you're a business owner and you're listening to this and you're sitting on the fence and you're uncertain and you're unsure, mate, let me warn you, the times are getting more uncertain, okay?
Yeah.
The housing market is going to continue to boom. There are builders going broke everywhere. The bubble ain't bursting anytime soon, right? Now, I'm not an expert in this area, but if you think this shit is changing every day, right? You don't wait for the one big black swan event. We've had one recently. It was called COVID, right? And the economy went one way, up, right? Now we've got inflation and we've got all these things, but that's stabilizing, right?
Yeah.
So as a business owner, you've just got to be ready, And I look at so many companies who were really agile during COVID, but a lot of them relied on the money from the stimulus. And now we're seeing them all go broke, right? Now, if you're one of those people, don't come to me. I'm not interested in solving your turnaround problem. It's more likely that you come to me in the hope that I'll buy out whatever's left and I'll let you send you on your merry way. But if your employees are any good, we'll keep them. And I mean, that's what we do. A lot of people don't realize that's one of the areas I'm heavily involved in, right? But the problem is, I say to people, don't come expecting a pill if you're not prepared to do the work, because there is no pill on the PBS for fixing your business if you've done a shit job, if you fail to look after your employees, if you've not had a strategy, if you've just gone gung-ho without the love. Like, come on. And I mean, this is the serious part of business, right? And I get really passionate about it because I love what I do, and I love doing it for the people that love what I do, and I love doing it for them. But, you meet so many people that we say no to, right? Every day I see someone, they want to be on a call with me, they want to get, mate, walk me through your business. And when they can't even tell me how much money they got in the bank, if they can't tell me what their age payables are, I do not want to be anywhere near you. Because it just means that you've got no idea, right? And I don't care whether you're Steve Jobs or anyone else. Steve Jobs knew his numbers, right? Yeah. He knew how much money he had to go and invest in other areas, but his board didn't want to let him have the money. And when they kicked him out, what happened? The so-called gurus, right, ended up killing Apple almost. And it took Steve to come back. I mean, amazing entrepreneur and innovator in his own right. Sure. Yep. And we all have challenges, like where he wasn't perfect at a lot of things too. But, it's driving that vision. And I guess this is wrapping up this. If you're the leader, you've got to be a visionary, right? Now, you don't have to be I'm having a brain fade. You don't have to be eccentric to be a leader, right? You don't have to be an introvert. You don't have to be an extrovert either. Steve Jobs was an introvert. Branson's an introvert. A lot of great leaders are introverts, but they know how to share their vision. They know how to live with purpose. All of these people have had purpose. They live with purpose, right? They live with purpose. That's exactly what's written behind my wall. That's it for me.
Absolutely true. And I think, my biggest takeaway from that is just ensuring that your teams are on the journey with you and that you're getting their feedback, because a lot of the times they're the ones with the intel that you need as an owner to be able to make those strategic decisions, because they know what's happening on the front line of your service or of your product and all of those kinds of things. And I think, as well, as something that I've learned from you, is just understanding that all the contingencies and all the what ifs, that's not being pessimistic and that's not being negative about things. It's actually just setting you up for more room to be agile and to overcome those obstacles that you discussed today. So, Kristian Livolsi, thank you very much for your time today on the hot seat. There was so many golden nuggets, truth bombs, all the rest of it in that. So I would watch that back a couple times because there was so many points in there to take away. And thank you to our audience who have hung in there with us throughout this episode of The Hot Seat, talking all about business strategy and execution.
All right. Well, signing out. Little message. Are we going? We're out. We got to jump on the mastermind call. So I'm going to thank you, everybody. Love your work. A little message from Adrian Lee. Are you ready to start taking action on your business? Would you like to spend more time with your family? Then call 1300-643-229 and start building momentum right now. I know you're busy. In fact, you are so busy that you don't have time to work on your business or yourself. Often tossing and turning at night, worrying about the how-tos and the cash flow. How on earth can you possibly get off the hamster wheel so that you can take a helicopter view to see where you'll be in 90 days, 1 year, or 3 years from now? In this program, I will take you from sleepless nights to blissful sleep. You'll have more time with your family and you will have the clarity and direction so you can grow and flourish. Call 1300-643-229 now and start building momentum.